operators who have been going on to some Scottish farms. So we're really delighted that you're here, so you can get your feedback and your real insight into what people are looking for from a farm tour. So thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Thayanne and I'm the contracting executive for Abbey Island in UK. So I'll just go through a short presentation to you on what we do and who our clients are and what can make your farm a great tour. So who are we? We are a destination management company, and we are, as if you like, a one-stop shop for anything international tour operators will require. So we do anything from transfers to visits and restaurants and everything a group would look for once they're here. We bring over 200,000 visitors to the UK each year, and that's between groups and also independent travelers. And our core business is selling destinations of Ireland and the UK to worldwide travel trade. We get business from over 52 countries all over the world. So, what makes a great farm tour? Over the years, Abbey groups have visited farms of all sorts. The most common being apples and cider, make cider, beef, cattle, dairy, sheepdog demonstrations, Highland cows, berries, lavender, and any organic produce. These are the most common, but we also have other more niche requests, and we can get all sorts of them. But we are very open to anything new as well that you might have to offer. We do have a demand from lots of markets. I mean, like I said, we work with over 52 countries, but the main ones being German, Americans, Spanish, Italian, French, Canadian, Australia, so all sorts of, and they might be, it just depends on who the client is really. They might be more specialist visitors who are coming here for, to visit certain things. They want more specific tours and they want to learn how it's done in the UK and to compare to what they do in their own country. So it might, and they want to see the differences, they want to see what the challenges are, they want to see how it's produced, how, the seasonality and everything about it. Or we also have educational groups. We also have people who just here at leisure, they just want a more entertaining and more like more sort of an experience and meet the locals and that kind of thing. So we can get all sorts of things, and it's very broad, but we do have scope for basically anything you have to offer. What could you include in your visit? So basically you can do only a guided tour with an introductory talk at the beginning and just give the opportunity for the visitors to explore a bit more on their own. Or you can also include a tasting of your own produce. So we have some sort of suppliers who, for example, it's an Angus beef farm, for example, and what they do is you can do the tour only, or you can also add, for example, a burger at the end for tasting, or a 2-course meal. It just depends on how big you are in terms of accommodating a group and all that kind of thing. Or sometimes it can also be just a cream tea, with homemade scones or shortbread and tea and coffee, that kind of thing. People are more looking for interactive experiences where they more hands-on, where they can either see the demonstration or they can do it yourself, so they can pick their own fruit, or they can feed the cows. They can, it just depends on the product you offer and how you can engage the visitors with the product you have. So, but they can basically, they want to do themselves. They want to see your machines operating, and they want to see a working farm. They want to hear specialist talks and everything about it. So all the aspects. So they want an engaging tour, something that will they will learn about, they won't forget, it will be an experience for them, rather than just this is, you know, this is what we do, and you can see things, but they want to the real experience, the full and thorough experience of it. The cost, it will again depend on the farm type, what you produce, the inclusions you have, the duration of the tour type, whether it's educational or it's more entertaining. Like I said, generally speaking, it depends, but basic tours between 10 and 15 pounds per person. That's what our other suppliers offer to us, and this would be the net rate, so that's the already discounted rate. What we can do as well, it just depends. Like I said, it would be the basic tour, so it can be just an introductory talk or a guided tour. And if you want to offer also other types and add-ons like tasting experiences or cream tea for the group as an addition, then we can also add on top of that. But usually the duration of the tour, we would normally expect anything between an hour and a half or 2 hours to 2 hours max. They don't have a lot of time, but at the same time they want to experience the whole thing. They want to have time to enjoy it, to make the most of it. So it has to be you know, has to be in between there, just so they can build that around the itinerary and just make it worth going further away, you know, from the city to do that. Okay, I think you can go ahead to the next one. So again, what they look for is a warm welcome, so a very warming reception, an engaging tour with demonstration and interaction, tasting opportunity if there is food involved, or otherwise if it's just an experience they want to see, they want to touch the animals, they want to, you know, feed them if possible, they want to pick their own fruit and veg, or we have received, for example, recently I was mentioning to somebody else, a request where they wanted a smoke, the group wanted us to see a smokehouse, but they didn't want like just a smokehouse, they wanted to see how the salmon was cut, and they wanted to see it being done in front of them. So it is something that you yourselves might not think that someone would want to see, that kind of thing, but it might be different in their own countries. Like I said, I'm from Brazil, and beef in Brazil is cut differently, you know, so they might want to see the differences, and they want to see it being done in front of them if possible, and that adds on to the experience and for the learning, especially if they are specialist visitors. So they want to see how it works, what are the differences. If you have knowledge in other countries, great, because then you would be able to add that onto your talk. So everything about feeding, how do you feed them, how long, how often, how does it work, how is it cut, how do you know, seasons and all that. They would be looking for refreshment most of the times, at least tea and coffee, to be included within the tour price. And again, the duration between an hour and a half and 2 hours. And they wanted time, they would be looking for to have time to ask questions and then take notes depending on how deep they want to go through the subject there. Facilities that we would be looking for would be toilets. These are all, they are not detrimental to the tour itself, so it won't be, it's good to have, but it's not a must-have. If you don't have, I know and I understand that farms not always will have such facilities for groups, especially for large groups. We deal with groups from all sorts of sizes, but they can be 40s, 50s, 60s, you know, and it can be tricky to accommodate all that, but it's a plus if you have. So toilets, a farm shop where they can buy your local produce, whatever you make in your farm, or take souvenirs or anything like that, also a plus. Or a cafe where they can buy homemade goods or refreshments after that if they want to do so. The location, it doesn't really matter because we do receive requests all over the UK. It just depends on the itinerary the group is doing, and most of the times, if they are really looking for a specialist farm, then they would build the itinerary around that, so that would be okay. The only thing, it has to be you have close access to the main bypass, the highways, coach accessibility as well, coach parking. Sometimes it's very difficult for a large coach to access some roads. They're very narrow. They have low bridges or nearby, so a coach can't go through. So those things can affect, bookings coming in really. But yeah, as I said, it can be anywhere. If they are specialist groups, they would be looking for it. They wouldn't mind traveling, as long as there is if it is accessible. But if not, if it's more for leisure, then we would just build that around the itinerary, wherever is close by to the other places they are visiting around. So it's just built around what the client demands from us, really. And again, catering, or what you could offer, if you wanted to, if you have the facilities to accommodate that, would be usually we receive requests for cream tea after the tour, teas and coffees, homemade pastries, cakes and shortbread. But you can, this is not exhaustive. You can offer anything you might feel like doing. Groups, they have a very tight. How can I say? The itinerary is very packed, so they don't have much time, and it's nice if they can build within that time a stop for a coffee or maybe even a lunch, a 2-course lunch, quick, or even a light lunch next to the sandwich. So any sort of add-on in terms of lunches and afternoon teas and refreshments is also great, because that helps them to build the itinerary and make most of the time here, most of the visits. So the more they can see within the time they're here, the best, more value for their money as well. Less traveling and all that, so great. So what we look for, I think there is more.
Oh, sorry.
No, oh, sorry. That's all right. Okay, so what we look for, to make it easier for us, we would be looking for you guys to set up credit facilities with us. That would mean that you would send us an invoice at the end of each month, and we would invoice us for every voucher you received. So that comes next with is the voucher friendly. So we would normally we would be looking to book with you by email. We would send you an email with the request, we would receive a confirmation from you, and we would then send you a voucher. We can send that ahead of the tour, or we can ask the guide as well to take a paper copy of the voucher with them and hand it to you on the day. You would then gather all these vouchers and just invoice us at the end of each month for all the vouchers received, and we would aim to make the payment. Usually our payment terms are within 30 days after the visit. Discounted rates, as both Keith and Anna mentioned, so we would be looking at rates that are lower than a public rate, so lower than what you would be selling to your public would just visiting there on the day without rebooking, or if they are not a group, etc. So again, it can vary. It depends on the product you offer. That's also negotiable. So it just depends on what you offer, what kind of market would suit that. So we would have more room to spend more money with the American markets, for example, because they have a higher budget. They have more time to spend, more money to spend. But again, it depends on the product you offer, if the product you offer suits them. So it just depends on the markets really. The other markets, mostly, generally speaking, groups, they have a tight budget. So we try to kind of accommodate and build into the packages what they look for. So this is why we ask for a commissionable rate, so we can then build and make some margin out of it, but still sell to our clients who are the agents to a more attractive price than they would do, so they can make it attractive for them to build that into the package. We would also expect a quick turnaround on booking requests. So sometimes we have a very tight deadline to come back to the client with a response and a confirmation for the booking. So we would expect to get a confirmation within 48 hours maximum, if possible. So if we send an email, if you could confirm as soon as possible, otherwise we can just come back to us and say we can't do such and such time, but we can do something else, we can do another time or another day, is that possible? We can try and sort the itinerary around, so shuffle things around to make it work for the group. So nothing is impossible, it's just like trying to keep the relationship, the communication there, so we can make things work and smooth for us, for the group visiting, for yourselves. And yeah, as also they mentioned about terms and conditions. We do have our standard terms and conditions, but again, that's negotiable and that might differ with other tour operators out there as well. But we can definitely talk about that whenever, you know, if ever comes to a contracting stage. We can negotiate on that, but cancellation policy we would be looking for. We would be looking for as well, sometimes we have large groups, but we don't usually receive the final numbers of the groups until 5 days prior to the visit. So let's say that initially we had confirmed with you that we have 50 visitors coming up to your farm, but then 5 days before we hear that 8 of them cancelled. So we would be looking into a cancellation policy that also has that clause in there, whether what happens if we just reduce the numbers, what's the, you know, how can we work around that? And also if the group cancels, or you know, the whole group cancels, or any other terms and conditions that you may have, payment terms. I mean, everything is, we can talk about everything. Like I said, we don't request anyone to give us exclusivity, so you are free to offer your products to other tour operators or any other places, do your own thing, that's not a problem. So there are no ties whatsoever. The good thing for you is that we work with many other countries and we do sell to many other international agents, so we can kind of promote your tours without you having to do anything. So there is basically no cost and no, there is no trap for you really. I mean, if we don't sell, you won't lose anything. There won't be anything you'll be losing. So it's just, it can only benefit you really. So, and it is a growing market for us in terms of the American market. We are exploring more. Also the Canadian market. The other markets are very stable. We've worked with them we've done this for the past 40 years, so we're very well established in that sense. So we have many clients in all countries, and it is, we know what we're doing in that sense, so we can kind of have the relationship with the clients, and we can offer. We have a great business development team who are the ones who build the itineraries, who offer the products to the clients according to what they're looking for. So we also, every time we have a new contract, for example, I'm the person responsible for all the contracting in the UK. So if I have a new contract, a new supplier contract, then I share with our teams, both the FIT, which is the independent travelers, and also the groups, the business development teams, and they pass around information. I send them all the information and they pass it on to the agents. And they try to include everything the clients look for onto the itinerary and build the itinerary around that. So we do all sorts of, we give them all the resources to do so in terms of sharing the contracts we have, all the suppliers we work with, and we have like Google Maps we build, so we have like one for distilleries, we have one for restaurants, we have one for farms, and everything we have, so they know if they're looking for something in a specific location, they will go there and check, and they will see and they will book that. So they know what we have. We try and build the communication and keep the communication out there within our team, so we can share the information as well with the agents and promote your product and give you more bookings, of course. In terms of rates, we would expect to receive your rates quite early in the season. Our business development team, they work well ahead of time. So right now, for example, it can be up until 18 months ahead. They start to provide quotes to the agents. They start to build itineraries and look into what we have. So right now, for example, they are already working on some tours for 2021. So it is 2020 is basically done already. So it is we might receive ad hoc requests and here and there, but it's well ahead of time. So we would be expecting to receive rates like maximum like between July and August, but we start requesting them around May, and we hope to get them up until the end of the year. But the earliest, the better, because then we can get the rates out there, make accurate quotes to the clients, and make sure that we are in a good position, and we can get the bookings sooner as well. So it's all about the communication. But keep in touch in terms of that. I have my cards here as well, which I'll distribute, and you can contact me if you have any other questions. And I think also about I think someone talked about who needs to be the guide. If you don't feel like you are a people's person, or you're too shy and you don't want to get that involved, but you still want to do that sort of business, it is okay. It does not necessarily has to be the farmer itself. It can be an experienced member of your staff who is more confident in that, who is equally passionate about it, because that's all our clients want to see, really. They just want to see the passion, they want to see all the details about it, and the more the better. So it doesn't have to be anyone specific. It specifically just has to be an experienced person who knows what they're doing, understands the business, and can answer any questions the group may have. And I think I've mentioned everything, but I'm open to questions if you have any. Yes?
Do you offer any sort of support for multilingual tours or anything like that? And what sort of preparations do people need to make for disabilities?
You mean like visitors with disabilities?
Correct.
Yeah. Well, we would ask, whenever we are contracting, we would ask you, we now have, we're sending contracts, our own contract in place to suppliers, and we have a section there where we ask whether your farm is accessible. And if not, it's okay. I mean, it's not all the time that we get people with disabilities, but it happens. We also try to build it around it. If there are areas of your farm that are not accessible, that's not generally a problem, because it might be that you can't access, but you are able to offer somebody who can come to the person on another room or something, and then give them a quick screen presentation, or just talk them through something, or show them personally something there that would kind of cover whatever you would have discussed, in the fields. So that's not a big deal for us at all. But in terms of languages, they wouldn't be expecting really to have a farm tour on their own language. But that, of course, if you have that add-on, if you have the knowledge, if you speak any other language or have a staff that do so, it's a positive, it's a bonus for us.
You don't do any interpreting work,
well,
or
they
say
might
a script
have,
or
no, we don't need
can...
that. No, we don't. They wouldn't be expecting. If you have, it's a plus. But they have their own guides as well. That might be accompanying the group, so they can, if they need any help in terms of translation, they might be able to do so as well. So that's not expected. No, but a plus if you have. Any other questions? Yeah.
Would your tours include like visits to multiple farms, or is it they want to see one farm, one historical monument, one distillery?
I think it just depends on the group. So like I said, it depends if they are a specialist group or they are farmers themselves in the country. So sometimes we do receive a group of farmers and they want to see all sorts of farms, or they just want to see several farms of the same type of produce, So it just depends on what they're doing. If it's for leisure only, they would probably see one farm or two, because they would be also seeing the other more popular visitor attractions. But if it's more specific or more educational, then they would be possibly seeing more than one, definitely.
What was your cancellation policy?
Our cancellation policy, if I'm not mistaken, it is, I think, 7 days prior or 5 days prior to the event for full for the whole group.
So there's no obligation to pay anything if it
Well,
cancels?
it just depends then. We can negotiate on that. We can say, for example, that if the whole group cancels up until 7 days prior, there is no cancellation fee. But if they cancel between, less than 5 days prior, then we would pay 50% and so on. That's negotiable. We can discuss that. It's just that for us, for groups, sometimes we do. It can be tricky because we do receive final numbers very, very soon, prior to the visit. So it's just more the reduction in numbers that would affect us mostly. I think if it was a full cancellation coming, we would give you as much notice as possible. But it's more like the reduction in numbers. Sometimes we don't receive them until like five days prior. So we would be looking to have some sort of flexibility in terms of numbers dropping. It's like, no, even increasing, because that happens as well. So it just, if it's okay to add, to make changes, that sort of thing. But again, that all can be discussed. I can send.
So some tour operators do sort of like a minimum, like say for example, like we'll guarantee you like £200 for the first 20 people, but we'll give you £200, and then any incremental person is at £10 a head or £50.
Yes, a group rate rather than a person rate. Yes, that happens as well. Yes. So sometimes they say you pay a group rate of £200 for a group of up to 25 people, and that we can have that as well. That sort of thing. Yes.
What kind of groups? Do you have an average group size, or what would be your smallest group that you would group?
Usually they wouldn't be less than 20 people, very rarely, but usually between, I would say, mostly 25 to 55. That's the majority of it. We do have anything that's less than 15, we would count as independent travelers. So they would be like they wouldn't be on a full-sized coach, they would be on a 16-seater, that kind of thing, or even self-drive or traveling by train. So that's also something that we would consider. So the rates, in terms of the rates as well, we would be looking for like travel trade rates, which would mean that any business we send to you, we charge at the same price, regardless whether they are a group or they are independent travelers. We don't get as many independent travelers requests for farms yet, but it's growing in terms of the requests for unique experiences and bespoke tours, that kind of thing. So they are looking more into that, so that's something that we can see a trend coming up. So if they are self-driving and they can, go to a farm or something, they would be happy to have the experience, especially if you have the tasting and all that kind. They want the quality, they want the whole experience and all that. So it just depends whether you would be happy to provide that as well, because that takes, I understand that takes your time. If it's an independent travel, only 2s and 4s, let's say, is a much smaller group, and it takes the same amount of time for you guys. So it just depends whether you are prepared to do that.
Could you set that to different price levels?
Yeah, we can do different. Usually, what most suppliers do, they do offer a lower rate for groups, for larger groups, and then discounted at a lower level for FITs. We can take that as well, especially because we know that at the moment it's not something we offer in a huge scale for FITs.
Question up here? No? Oh, sorry. It's answered, right? Alison?
Just going to ask about cancellations, the other way around, and I don't imagine you get it very much, but how is that viewed from the provider cancelling? So thinking, for example, we had very, very high winds one day or two, and we managed it, but afterwards we had that conversation that it was bordering on actually dangerous because of the environment they were coming to run the tour on that day.
Yeah.
If that happens,
No,
obviously
that's fine. If it's something out with your control, that's due to nature, bad weather conditions, that shouldn't be a problem for us. We totally understand that. Certain things you can't control, and
I guess you get that in other things on your trips.
yeah, we would just have to substitute the tour for something else to the client and just get on with it. So that's not a problem. That's something that happens. The only thing is that if you have once it's confirmed, then we wouldn't be expecting for you guys to cancel, you know, unless there was something like that. Yeah.
How many Scottish farms are you working with just now?
Scottish farms, I would say probably not that lot. I think it's less than 10 at the moment.
After today, it's going to be about 50.
That's good because it's growing. It's something that we get all the niche requests, and it's difficult to find. Actually, I have something else to say. It can be, I don't know if some of you guys have websites, but sometimes for us, although we have contracted, a small number of farms at the moment. Sometimes we have niche requests for some things we don't have contracted, and we have to look ourselves and try and source the supplier, and it can be very, very difficult for us to see whether you guys are tourist friendly. Whether you are just a non-working farm, a working farm that doesn't want to work with tourists, or whether you are tourist friendly in that sense, whether you would be able to offer those visits and that sort of stuff. So if you have a website where you can provide a visit section, with more information, or just to allow us to see that you can do it, that you are able to do it. It doesn't have to contain a lot of information, but just so we know you are friendly enough to receive group visits, then that's a plus on our side as well, because we sometimes can struggle to find if we have a very niche request.
A lot of farms are exploring running cottages and accommodation and things like that. Is that something that you guys can package? And if so, can several farms that are clumped in a region take that bus load that's optimal for you and divvy them up into several locations and bring them back together for departure the next day or something like that?
Oh yeah, we do contract accommodation as well. So we do contract B&Bs and all sizes really, and all locations. So this is something we can look at, yes. If you have accommodation as well, we can certainly look at it. It's somebody else who looks after the accommodation contracting, but if you, I'll leave my card here, you can contact me, I can pass on the information on to the right person, and we can see how we can work in terms of combining the visits and that's something we do already for other suppliers. So it's fine. We do that with, there is even like bigger suppliers, let's say castles where they have visitors and accommodation as well within, so it is possible.
Okay, one more question?
It's not really a question, it's a point. We did 1 or 2 tours, and it's dawned on us that people were actually coming to a farm who were other farmers, and they were coming because it was a tax break for them, so they could get their holiday through their business. So don't be scared of charging farmers too much. And then we can charge more.
Thank you.
We're not meant to be giving her advice. There you go, you've learned something.
That's good to know. The other thing as well, just one point that was raised to us from a Canadian client. They went to visit a farm, and whenever they went back onto the country, when they were on the border, they just realized, they were asked whether they had visited the farm abroad. So, and if so, I think it takes a lot of time for them to kind of go through, because there are security questions they have to make. So they mentioned that they would be nice to have like at least shoe covers and that sort of stuff. If you can provide, that's a bonus, because that makes them less hassle for them to go back to their own country, if you know what I mean. So it's just because they are afraid sometimes to kind of bring animal diseases into their own country. So this is a good point of feedback that we have from the client.
Okay.